Tonight we begin slowly, not with answers, but with the kind of questions that don't need to be spoken aloud. Somewhere in a town not far from tiredness, where houses hum quietly at night, and windows glow with the soft flicker of stories being read beneath blankets, there's a door, or perhaps a shadow that remembers it once was a door. It only appears when the world has gone still enough that your heart starts to sound louder than everything else. It's not hidden, but it's never found by accident. You don't stumble upon it. You arrive when you've stopped searching. The door is narrow, painted with a kind of black that isn't cold, just quiet. There is no sign hanging from it. No number, no bell, just an old silver handle, warm where the night touches it, and behind it, a library, but not the kind with late returns and encyclopedia shelves. This one is older, deeper, built from sleep sighs and sentences never quite finished. Its lamps glow with memory. Its walls breathe softly, like they're listening more closely than anyone ever has. And the stories inside, they don't wait to be chosen, they choose you. So if you let your thoughts slow tonight, just enough to leave a space between them, if your dreams move a little closer and you begin to wonder what might still be unread within you, you may hear a whisper or feel the corners of your room stretch gently, opening just wide enough to let the door appear. You don't have to knock, the door already knows, and when you step through, you'll find Leo standing in socks, cradling quiet like an old coat, and wondering why this library feels oddly familiar, like it has remembered him even in the years he forgot how to turn a page. The library is open just for a little while, but long enough to find not the right book, but the one that's been softly watching from the shelf, waiting for you to be ready. Leo stared at the ceiling, not because he was waiting for something to appear, but because he had given up looking anywhere else. The fan circled above, slow and stubborn. The blanket was warm, but now too warm. One leg out, one leg tucked in. Nothing felt right. It wasn't discomfort, not exactly. It was that strange sort of restlessness that makes sleep feel 2 inches too far to reach. Nothing was wrong, and yet he couldn't rest. Through the window, the town slept like it always did. Streetlights buzzed softly in the fog. Trees drooped into themselves. The clock across the room blinked. 11:53 p.m. in paler and paler red. Leo had read earlier, at least he tried to. The book was good, but the words felt like they were holding their breath, trying not to speak too loudly inside his head. Now the house was quiet, not silent, just like paper before it's written on. He turned onto his side, then back, side, let his hand trail off the edge of the bed, fingertips brushing the wooden floor. That's when he felt it. Not a draft, not a thud, a pull just behind his chest, a magnetic shift in thought, like memory being nudged by something waiting at the edge of the known. It made him sit up, not fast, but certainly. "I'm not dreaming, right?" He said it out loud, then laughed at himself quietly, because no one answered, just the wind outside, which had grown strangely directional. Leo padded to the window. The street hadn't changed, still fog-slouched and lamplit, still framed by the soft shapes of porches and chimney smoke, but something felt rearranged. He leaned closer to the glass, and there, between the bakery and the alley tucked behind the old florist, a light, pale, blue, barely touched by the fog. His eyes narrowed. There hadn't been a door there earlier, he was sure of it. Now, A tall, thin outline glowed faintly beneath the arch of brick, and all at once Leo felt it, the space in the air that means invitation, not a voice, not a sign, not magic in the loud sense, just presence, waiting, certain. He pulled on his softest hoodie, the one with the worn cuffs he always chewed on when nervous, and kept on his slipper socks. No shoes. It didn't feel like a shoes kind of night. He slipped out the front door, quietly, not sneaky, just soft. Even the sidewalk seemed to wait between steps, and as he approached the alley, the glow sharpened slightly. Midnight. The door was narrow, made of worn pine, painted book spine black. On its handle was a small brass plate, etched into it, simply, quiet belongs here. Leo laughed very softly into his scarf. What a welcome. He reached out. The handle was just warm enough to feel like it had missed being held. He turned it. The door opened without a sound. Warm light spilled out, golden, folded with greens and deep browns. It didn't spill like a welcome mat, more like a page being turned gently, making room for the next story to begin, his. And so Leo stepped inside, into the library, the one that only opens at midnight. The door closed behind him with a hush, not a click, not a thud, just a soft shift, as though the door were choosing not to interrupt the stillness inside. Leo stood, unmoving, letting the quiet gather around him. It wasn't silent here, not completely. The air buzzed with low meaning, not noise, just intention, like pages fluttering 3 rooms over, or someone thinking something beautiful nearby. The kind of quiet you find beneath heavy quilts and between notes of a piano, played slowly by someone who loves the space between notes just as much. He took a breath. Immediately the smell wrapped around him: paper, wool, vanilla ink, peppermint bark chewed long ago beneath bed covers, and something else, not scent but feeling, a presence that smelled like being read to as a child by someone who never once rushed the ending. The room he was in didn't look large at first, a round, welcome space, ceiling domed in dark wood like the inside of a music box. Faint lanterns pulsed from the walls, not like gaslight or bulbs, but like clouds that had learned how to glow warmly and stay in place. Ahead, 3 arched doorways, one paneled in brass, leaking cool light, one crowded with ivy around its edges, one that faded into shadow but sounded like humming, and above all 3, a sign painted in looping copper script: "Choose how you'd rather be greeted." Leo smiled. He didn't fully understand, but he liked that he didn't have to. He stepped toward the ivy frame first. Inside, he glimpsed gigantic shelves, crammed with soft leather books, curled slightly on their sides like cats on a windowsill. A breeze passed through. The pages moved, but no one turned them. They were breathing. Were they asleep? He turned instead to the brass-lit arch. It flickered gold blue like fire seen underwater. A placard stood beside the door now, where there hadn't been one just a second ago. It read, "Recent memories waiting to be read back slowly." He blinked. Was that for him? Did the library arrange its doors depending on intention? The room behind hummed, not strongly, not clearly, just enough to say, "Only if you need it." But it was the 3rd doorway that pulled, the one that faded into sound instead of light. It had no label, just a whispering seam, a suggestion, like the moment before a soft voice speaks your name in the dark. Leo edged toward it. The carpet muffled his slippered steps into nothing. Peering in, he saw nothing, and yet felt warmth curiosity, the comfort of being in the presence of a story waiting to meet him. You don't have to know the end, the air seemed to say. Just start at the sentence where you are. He nodded and walked through. Now the library opened around him in chapters, hallways branched like plot lines, shelves curved instead of turning. Every row had a rhythm. Some books glowed faintly, some pulsed, a few whispered in old languages, not in hopes of being read, but in the delicious joy of simply existing in a place that honored unfinished thoughts. He ran his fingers along one shelf, barely touching the velvet curve of spines. Some covers were wrapped in cloth, some were too small for titles, some had titles that changed mid-gaze. One shimmered forward gently. He didn't pick it up, not yet. It blinked anyway, softly, like an old friend saying, "We've missed you." He kept walking, past rows of books big as doorways, tiny books inside bell jars, entire islands suspended in the air with trees planted between the pages. The library was not one room, not 10. It was whatever it needed to be to match the pace of your patience. Leo smiled again, a truer smile this time. The kind that lifts only one side of your face, like a secret has welcomed itself home in your chest. Because here, he wasn't browsing, he wasn't hunting, he was being remembered by something that had been waiting to read him back. It began with a sound that wasn't a sound, a hush with direction. Leo had wandered past 3 archways, 2 curved staircases, and an aisle that smelled like rain-soaked newsprint, when something in the air shifted. Lists whispered, not from people, from pages, not turning, not rustling, breathing, calling. It was like the shelves had gathered themselves into a long-held breath, and then released it between the bookshelves just as Leo passed. He stopped walking. Immediately the whisper paused. He turned his head ever so slightly. There, 2 rows to his left, something in the middle shelf flickered, a low shimmer, not like sparkle, like memory. He stepped toward it. The shelf before him didn't look particularly different. Books of all colors, hardcovers worn smooth at the edges, spines soft with handling. One book folded inside a knitted sweater, but one didn't glow, didn't pulse. It whispered again, this time clear enough to feel behind his sternum. "You've waited long enough to read me." Leo reached out, touched the spine, smooth, cold, slightly damp, like a page forgotten on a windowsill. There was no only a small circle pressed into the center, with a single line trailing from it like a falling star. He pulled it gently from the shelf. It gave with great willingness, no dust, no resistance. It wasn't heavy, but its weight felt like something loved once and carefully wrapped away. Before he opened it, he held it to his chest for a moment, not sure why, but knowing it somehow deserved to be near a heartbeat before it was turned open again. The whisper returned. "Don't open me to read, open me to remember." So he did. The first page was blank, the second 2, the third seemed to shimmer with text, but only when he didn't look directly at it. Then, in soft script, halfway down, a completely empty page. "You once started this story in your head and didn't realize how much it missed you." Leo drew in a breath. He didn't know he hadn't taken. He kept turning pages, each one greeting him quietly with sensations instead of sentences. One smelled like a room he once napped in as a child. Another made his shoulders relax suddenly. One page flashed only one word, "Try." He wasn't sure if he was reading or dreaming. He didn't want to know. He flipped quietly forward until one page resisted, then blinked into view. A single paragraph written as if by a voice he used to trust. You don't have to finish me, you only have to carry me the way stories carry people. Not as answers, not as proofs, but as invitations. He gently closed the book. Its cover felt warmer now. Inside he could still feel the echo of the whisper. Not haunting, not unmet, just humbled by recognition. He turned it in his hands and read the final line, printed along the inside edge. I'm not your favorite story. I'm just the one who kept waiting for when you were ready to read kindly. Leo looked out across the bay of shelves. Somewhere behind him, a soft chair waited, but here, right in this moment, he sat on the floor, cross-legged, comfy, sock-warm, book resting across his knees, eyes closed, savoring a whisper finally understood. Leo hadn't moved in a while, and that was fine. The floor was warmed by stories. He could feel it beneath his socks, beneath his breath. The book in his lap had fallen silent, not gone, just satisfied, like a host who made you tea and now quietly leaves the room, letting you exhale without expectation. That's when he noticed it. A soft noise, not wind, a thump almost too faint to be real. He tilted his head. There it was again. Thump, pause, thump, rhythmic like a heartbeat, but it didn't echo from within him. It came from the shelf just across the aisle. One book nestled between two thin volumes, its leather cover slightly lifted at the edge, and just as Leo looked at it, it blinked. He blinked back, pulled in a short breath, waited. The book blinked again, only now he realized it wasn't a light flare, it wasn't a trick, it was a pair of etched eyes, nearly invisible on the cover, glimmering softly with violet light. Every few seconds they opened, then closed, and again. Leo stood, slowly slipped the first book under his arm like a folded coat, and walked closer to the blinking one. The shelf around it buzzed slightly, not warning, more like bracing. The air grew scentless, no jasmine, no vanilla ink, no dusty hush, just clarity. He reached out, not to touch, but to be known. The book pulsed once, then opened itself delicately, not with rustle, but with patient purpose. Inside, no text, no title page, just a single shimmer of dust that rose like steam. It curled into a shape above the book and began to show images, footsteps along a bridge he hadn't crossed yet, a tiny envelope left behind by a dream, his own handwriting, only he hadn't written it yet. And then the image froze, flickered, disappeared. Then, inside the book, a single phrase appeared. We are not stories yet, but we're already learning how you turn pages. Leo blinked again, smiled. So you were watching. He didn't expect a response, but a second sentence appeared anyway. We all do. You just met the first brave enough to blink back. He closed the book gently, didn't try to keep it, didn't ask what came next. Instead, he leaned forward and whispered, I'm listening, turn the page when you're ready. And somewhere across 100 shelves, beneath 1,000 folded bindings, other books stirred, not to be opened, not yet, but to watch, to see, to wonder, is he the reader I've waited for? And quietly, softly, Leo stayed and kept reading with his breath, not his eyes. The blinking book had been quiet for some time. Leo remained still after closing it. In this library, silence wasn't awkward. It was affectionate. Stillness wasn't the absence of movement, it was a room leaning in closer to hear you better without asking any questions. He exhaled softly, not from tiredness that weighed, but from something lighter, a kind of release that only happens after feeling fully seen. That's when it began, from the far end of the aisle, down low near the floor. A faint glow appeared, faint but deliberate, not urgent, not showy, just the way a little flame might appear if a memory finally decided to speak. He got up, slowly, didn't rush, didn't ask. The light flickered as he approached. A row of tiny books, barely larger than his palm, rested on a bottom shelf carved like a windowsill. None of the titles caught his eye, except one, bound in patterned silk, gold thread fraying at the corners, completely unmarked. No name, no title, just a small gold dot on its cover, as if to say, "You'll know if you're meant to open me." Leo pulled it out. It was lighter than expected, like it trusted him already. He opened it. The pages didn't wait for him to read them. They began to read themselves out loud, not with a voice, but with something quieter, a kind of internal echo that seemed to hum softly in his own chest. On the first page, "You've skipped me before, on other shelves, on other nights, in other quiet hours, when you hoped to dream of simpler things. And that's okay, because I was never asking to be your favorite, only to hold something for you until you felt like resting near it again." Leo's breath slowed. His hands held the book like it was breakable, but also already repaired from many hands before his. The next page turned itself. "This is the page for the times you believed every dream had to be big, loud, full of impact. This page is here to say, some dreams are just for holding quiet things, like still mornings, like remembering someone's kindness, like finishing nothing, but loving the middle of it anyway." He didn't cry, not quite, but the heat behind his eyelids was real, good heat, the kind that dries what loneliness once pooled there. Another page turned, this one blank, except for one pressed finger mark, soft, round, the print of someone else before him. It felt kind. Leo smiled gently, then whispered, "Thank you for keeping this ready." And the next page shivered slightly in reply. More pages now, short lines, soft images, a kite that never needed wind, a piano key played by accident that sounded better than the one written, a hand reaching for help and getting held, no questions asked. He stayed with the book for what must have been hours. But here, time folded inward like origami. It didn't pass, it cradled him, and at the end, the last page showed only this: "You may not remember me, but I know you better now than when you last left, and I will still be here the next time you need a quiet yes." Leo closed the book. This one didn't ask to be returned, it simply asked to be placed somewhere soft. So he tucked it into the pouch sewn inside his coat and stood. Nothing waited, no next invitation, no obligation, only warmth rising from the floor, inviting him to stay in the pace he'd just remembered, the pace of being found at the exact moment he stopped searching. At the heart of the library, beyond the spiral shelves, and just past a sunken room of scattered pillows and low chandeliers, stood a clock. Leo came upon it while wandering with purpose, not rushing, just moving slowly enough to seem guided. the hallway curved into a wide, circular room. The walls were lined with shelves that reached all the way up a glass-covered dome where stars winked through the ceiling, despite the fact that the sky outside was mostly still. And at the very center was the clock. It didn't move, it didn't tick, it had no hands, no numbers, just a wide circular face etched in silver patterns that reminded Leo of ripples at the center of a still lake. Every few moments the silver glowed gently, then dimmed, not pulsing, just remembering. There was a small cushion by the base. It was already warm when Leo sat down on it. He looked up at the face of the clock and stayed like that for a long time, not waiting for it to do anything, just watching, noticing how perfectly it did nothing. After a while, a voice, not speaking but shaped around him, rose from the space like mist by candlelight. Most clocks try to keep time. This one listens to how you're holding it. Leo smiled. I don't think I'm holding it very well. The voice replied, then it must be holding you. He leaned back slightly onto the cushion and took a full breath, one of those, deep down into the chest, held it, released it longer than expected. A few seconds passed. The glow at the center of the clock turned slightly, as if adjusting to his breath or congratulating it for slowing down. He knew without knowing this was not a clock for hurrying, not even for scheduling. It was simply here to be noticed, and in noticing it, you began to notice things in yourself you hadn't named yet. The center shimmered again. This time, Leo heard something almost like music, faint, internal, a rhythm lined with space and kindness. There was writing along the inside edge, almost invisible, but there. He leaned forward, read it slowly. Those who rush to the ending miss the chapter made for resting. Just below it, another line. Sleep is not time lost. It's a library returning a memory you didn't know you checked out. He sat with those words, didn't write them down, didn't need to. His breathing had taken on their shape, and when he stood again, the cushion puffed quietly beneath him. No bell rang, no time announced, but the library shifted just a little as he turned, like something had noticed he was moving slower now and approved. In the corridor as he walked away, a little plaque appeared beside the door frame. It said, not to him, but in general, this clock doesn't mark when it is, it marks when you are. Leo paused, touched his chest, felt the glimmer of the story tucked in his inside coat pocket, and the quiet of the clock settle behind his ribs like a returned pause, a pause he hadn't known he'd mislaid, and so he walked deeper, not after anything, just breathing in time that never asked to be chased, only to be kept gently. There was a hallway that looked like a sentence almost erased. Its walls faded from one color to another so gradually that it felt like walking inside a dream's second thought. Leo didn't choose this hallway. His steps just drifted there. The further he walked, the less noise the world seemed to allow, until no page turned, no breath echoed, no footfall spoke. All that remained was a hush that let him hear himself fully. At the end of the hall was a room with no door, just a low archway like the start of a yawn, and inside a chair, or at least a shape that had known many kinds of sitting. One leg of the chair leaned ever so slightly out, like someone had once used it to turn in place as they thought about how they were feeling. The arms were rounded, not from design, from being held over time. The threads along the edge were worn into softness by fingertips, thinking their way through rest. The cushion hadn't smoothed with time. It had memorized body language. This was not a new chair, it was a remembering. Leo stood still for a moment. His chest felt soft, not tender, not heavy, just open, not in need of mending, only companionship. He walked forward and sat down, and the chair hummed beneath him, not a sound, just a low understanding. The room had no shelves, no books, no windows. It offered nothing, and yet it welcomed everything. Leo sank into the seat gently, fully, and as he did, the room changed, but not around him, inside him. Memories began to lift, not sharp ones, not shouts or shocks, just textures, like the feel of wrapping a blanket all the way around your ankles, the sound of someone you trusted humming softly in another room, the cool metal of lunchbox latches the specific way it feels to fall asleep at your grandparents' table during a holiday. He closed his eyes, didn't chase the memories, he just let them play, a vase of remembered moments, tilted gently, pouring themselves out in slow motion. The chair held him without haste, and the room said nothing, but it listened in a way only libraries and forests ever know how, deeply, reverently, with no expectation, and all the time in the world. Across the floor, a single sentence appeared, letters rising not from ink, but from settling dust. Some seats don't want to hold importance. They want to hold relief. Leo smiled, not the full smile, the smaller kind, the one you make when someone else says exactly what you were thinking before you found the words. He didn't ask the chair questions. He didn't wonder what came next. He simply rested in the quiet, and the quiet rested in him. Later, when he stood, the room remained unchanged, but there on the chair's arm was an indentation, the shape of a hand, not his, not new, just someone else who'd sat and felt what he felt long ago, and maybe again, someday soon. Back in the hallway, the silence followed him, but it didn't cling. It walked beside him like a story not ready to speak yet, but glad to know it would be welcomed when it did. Past the room with the listening chair, past the hallway where footsteps remembered emotion instead of sound, Leo found a corner he might have passed completely if not for the little glow beneath his feet. A small desk tucked between two low shelves stacked with boxes of ribbon-bound notes. Nothing remarkable at first glance, just a chair, a flat surface, a journal resting in the center. He almost didn't touch it, but then he noticed the pen beside it wasn't a quill or a ballpoint or even really a pen. It was a shape, fine, smooth, and glowing, not with color, but with permission. Its light dimmed slightly the moment he sat down, as if acknowledging, now we can begin. He opened the book. The page was blank, not white, but soft gray, the kind of page that doesn't ask you to be brilliant, just honest. He picked up the pen. No weight, it felt like holding breeze in fingertip form. He didn't plan his words. He simply wrote the first thing that wanted to come out. I don't know what I'm doing here. The ink flowed noiselessly like it already knew the shape of the sentence, then paused. A few seconds later, the page wrote back, same handwriting, softer pressure. That's not the same as being lost. Leo exhaled, gripped the pen a little steadier, wrote again. Do all people feel this much? The page responded almost instantly. Only when they're close to something important. He smiled, a quiet smile, the kind you make when a coat fits without trying. Like those words had always been under his ribs, he just hadn't heard them out loud until now. Next, I used to think stories needed to be told by other people. The page. Sometimes stories need to hear themselves from you first. More followed. Questions, half-thoughts, moments he'd tucked away without labeling, and for each one the book offered not completion but companionship. He wrote, "What if I don't finish what I've started?" The page paused, as if listening harder than before, then slowly responded, "Then the story will simply rest until life brings you back to it. You are allowed to walk away kindly." His breath caught at that, because he hadn't known that was something he needed permission for. He wrote one last thing, "How do I know if I matter?" A long pause, then without flourish, "Because you're still asking, still showing up, still sitting here writing softly. That's what mattering looks like." Leo sat back, listened to the stillness around the corner. No footsteps, no clock, just the glow of the blank page. Ready again. He didn't write more tonight. He closed the book, left it with the pen resting softly across the spine. As he stood, a warm breeze pushed the next page open behind him. Words appeared as he stepped away. "You don't have to come back, but we'll be here in case you do." And Leo smiled fuller this time, because belonging lives in pages that write with you, not just for you. The shelf wasn't impressive, tucked between fractured fables and books that never asked to be read. No glow, no whisper, just a plaque carved in soft charcoal wood. It read, "Unfinished chapters that do not begin or end, they simply arrive." Leo ran his fingers along the spines. No titles, just markings, symbols, small loops in gold leaf. One had a single fingerprint stamped into its cover, pressed, not printed. Then he saw it, a chunk of paper bound unevenly with thread. No cover, no book jacket, just loose edges stitched tight into their place. The label on the edge barely clinging to the fabric. Chapter 17. No book title, no author, no plot, just a number. 17. Leo looked around. No guides came, no voice offered warning, and he realized, "I've been in the middle of things my whole life." He pulled the chapter from its space. It sighed gently in his hands. He opened it. It started mid-sentence. And though he hadn't spoken his name aloud today, the air seemed to remember it anyway. Leo blinked, read on. The next line pulled his chest inward. He didn't know if the story was still about him, but the footsteps matched his breath, so he kept walking. His heart slowed. The page beneath his fingertips seemed warm, like a sunbeam through a library window in early spring. It felt old, unpolished, personal, like the kind of writing you leave in a letter, knowing you may never send it, but finishing it anyway for the sake of feeling known by the page itself. He flipped a few lines forward. In the margins, someone had written softly, "Don't forget to pause here." And the next paragraph simply read, "Sometimes leaving a sentence half finished is how the truth stays soft enough to carry." Leo swallowed. A faint ache beneath his ribs hummed like a skipped breath. He didn't know these sentences, and yet each one knew him, not specifics, sensations. He folded the chapter closed, not to put it back, but to hold it against his chest for a moment. Let it match his rhythm. Let it prove that middles matter just as much. even when no beginning can be remembered and no ending has arrived, one page slipped out, just one, folded. He caught it before it hit the floor, unfolded it, a single sentence handwritten in soft pencil. You're not behind in your story. You're just reading it slower than the world expects. That was enough for tonight. Leo tucked the page into his coat pocket, replaced the chapter gently on its shelf with a thunk soft enough to feel like a whispered goodbye, and he left that aisle feeling lighter, not because anything had ended, but because now he understood that every middle is a full breath, a full step, a full moment, just waiting to be honored. Leo walked slowly, not because he was tired, but because the air had started to feel wider, like something was settling behind him, gently folding up its wings. No books whispered now, no shelves shifted. The glow from the lanterns had deepened into something sleep-colored, but the warmth hadn't dimmed, not at all. On his way back toward the central chamber, through passages now familiar, heartbeat worn, the floor beneath his feet softened, not in texture, in tempo. Each step felt acknowledged, like pressing into a page that responded to your presence just enough for the ink to lift a little. A familiar scent returned, not lavender or dust, but something warmer, like old paper soaked in sunlight and wrapped in wool. He passed the chair that had listened, past the corridor where the unfinished chapter had once blinked open, and then, as he crossed a narrow threshold into the main atrium, the library spoke. It didn't speak with a voice, no mouth, no vibration, no words shivered in the air, but Leo felt a sentence move around him, a sentence only spaces full of books know how to utter. It wasn't made from letters, it was made from presence, and it said you did not have to understand everything here to be changed by it. He stopped walking, not out of surprise, but reverence. The air seemed to gather itself into a shape, not a figure, a feeling. The room leaned closer, walls breathing slowly, chairs stilling, shelves pausing mid-shuffle, and the library whispered again into his chest, into where the pause had lived. You belong now, not because of what you've read, but because you listened. Leo closed his eyes, let the message settle where only silence can reach. Then came a feeling, curling softly through the soles of his feet, like a bookmarked page slipping back into place, a gesture that meant, your chapter here may rest now. He stood unsure whether to inch forward or stand still forever, until one more nudge, a chair pulling out just an inch back by the door. A coat, his, was now folded there. Next to it, a cup, steam curling in quiet symbols no language ever learned to pronounce. A note beneath it, one line only. Libraries remember everyone who breathes slower inside them. Leo reached for the coat, sipped the tea, now warm and just sweet, and as he stared toward the exit, still hidden but nearby, he whispered, almost without realizing, I'll come back, even if I never find this door again. The floorboards, ever polite, creaked back in something close to agreement, and as lights dimmed, not off, but inward, he stepped toward the place where the library began to let go, knowing full well he wasn't walking out, he was being carried forward. It was the quietest room yet, not because the library hushed it, but because it had hushed itself. The hallway narrowed, ceilings dipped low, the light bent downward like fog kneeling across old glass. No sign pointed here, no glow beckoned. but something in Leo's feet said, "This is not a place to pass by." The threshold was soft, a low curtain of hanging paper, squares folded into simple shapes, drifting like dreams mid-sentence. He parted them with care, his hands brushing the hush from both sides, and stepped in. No shelves, just beds, dozens, rows of books nestled under cloth, not displayed, not labeled, just resting, some tucked in deep with embroidered covers, others half open, like mouths still mouthing the final words before sleep took over. Leo didn't speak. He didn't even think loudly. It would have felt like shouting in a room where quiet had settled too comfortably to be disturbed. He walked between the books like one walks between nightlights in the homes of people they love, respectfully. At the far end of the room was a window with no outside, only a view of curved shapes that looked like sentences not yet spoken, and beneath that window on a deep cherrywood table rested a single volume, a little thicker than the others, tied gently with blue-gray ribbon. A tag rested on top. It didn't say "read me," it didn't say "fragile," it only said, "You held me once, long ago." Leo stepped closer. The air near this book smelled faintly of fireplace and the soft cotton of childhood pajamas. His hand hovered over it, paused, but the book quivered slightly, then settled again, as if it recognized him. He smiled, not because he remembered, but because he was remembered. He didn't untie the ribbon. That wasn't why he had come. He placed one palm gently on the cover and listened, not for a story, but for a feeling, and what he felt was relief, the kind books feel when someone finally puts them down and whispers, "You did enough." He turned to leave, the pages folded behind him almost inaudibly. All around, the resting books remained still, but somewhere in the room, maybe near the floor, maybe in his own chest, he heard one last phrase, spoken not in letters, but in warmth curling around the corners of breath. "You don't have to finish every story. Some just need your hand on the cover one last time." The hallway narrowed again, like it didn't want too many people walking this way at once. Just enough space for a single story to be carried gently, one heart at a time. Leo followed without knowing why. His steps, now slower by habit, led him toward a series of stone arches, each one shaped a little differently, some tall and thin, some low and wide, some curved like questions. Above the first doorway, faint text read, "Here live the endings that paused but didn't fail." He passed beneath the arch. The air smelled of pause, of half-blown candles and last-spoken lines not quite committed to memory. The room ahead wasn't a room exactly. It was a corridor of moments. One scene flowed softly into the next, like vignettes framed by silence. Not holograms, not pages, just movements repeating in slow, golden loops, visible only if you looked in a certain way, neither directly nor fully. To his left, a person sat at a train station under a flickering street lamp, holding a note they never sent. You could hear the sigh, the kind made not out of pain, but because something had decided to rest. The scene faded. Ahead, a child stood by a curtain, waiting for someone to come home. They weren't sad, they weren't forgotten, they were just content to wait, even if the story moved on without telling them what came next. And to the right, a cup of tea sat on a windowsill, steam rising slow. Next to a pair of shoes, no one moved toward again. A page turned, but no voice read it. Still, the scene felt done, even without a full stop. Leo stood in the center and listened, not for dialogue, but for the soft music of accepted incompletion. He thought about all the little things in his own life he never finished, the letter half written, the video game paused forever, the goodbye he waved but never said, the story idea with a lovely name and no second paragraph. He smiled. This hallway didn't make him feel guilty. It made him feel understood. A bench sat along the wall. On it, a book with no ending chapters, only 17 full ones, then a blank. Someone had carved into its inside cover. This was enough. Leo lingered beside it, placed a fingertip on the final page, and didn't feel the need to write anything else. Next to the bench was a mirror framed in barked wood. Tiny words bloomed in the glass as he looked into it. Most endings don't vanish, they simply wait to become beginnings one day. He stepped away slowly, not needing more, just fuller now, like he'd just eaten a cup of stillness and grown something quietly stronger for it. At the final arch back toward the main hall was a wooden beam etched into it, left aligned like a title that couldn't decide its tone, goodbyes that never had to explain themselves, and below it you're allowed to walk out of chapters that don't finish and still call them stories. He paused beneath that line and without thinking bowed his head, not in sadness, just in gratitude for the things he never wrote, yet somehow still remembered him anyway. There were no shelves in this hallway, no lamps, no windows, just space wide enough to walk, narrow enough to feel held. The floor was soft, the stone glowed like deep candlelight, and the air held a thickness, not of dust or silence, but of attention. Whatever had happened here before had lingered, was still lingering. Leo walked with his arms folded loosely and his thoughts tucked below his breath. He didn't need to wonder what was ahead. He felt it before he saw it. First, a glow, not floating but hovering. Then, a few words drifting in the air. Paused, hung mid-air in light as soft as moon milk, writing themselves slowly with no quill, just presence. He stepped forward. The words brightened. There they were. Only one sentence. No book, no paper, no wall, just luminous letters resting above the center of the room. And even if you don't finish this story, it will keep finishing you. Leo stopped. The words didn't move, didn't shimmer now. They just were, existing as if they had always been here, and just waited for the right reader to breathe beside them. He stared for a long time, didn't need to read it again. The sentence had already folded inside his chest and made itself a room there, small, windowed, open. Behind him nothing stirred. Ahead no door appeared. There was just this moment, one sentence, one reader, one quiet room. He whispered, not to summon more words, but to stay a little longer inside the ones already given. You finished enough of me tonight. The sentence pulsed once, like a heart gently nodding, and then it stayed there, still glowing, still suspended, still not done. But then again, maybe it wasn't meant to be. Leo turned to leave, without guilt, without rush, without closure, just content, because some words don't end. They simply begin again whenever they're noticed, and this sentence would be here long after midnight.